Bonjour, Véronique Véro reporting from Bayonne in southwestern France. It is a beautiful day in August, lunchtime, very hot today, probably in the high 80s by now. We are looking at the entrance of the Botanical Gardens in Bayonne, and we are standing outside what used to be the walls protecting the city. These walls were erected over time, first by the Romans, who had a settlement here in 4 AD, later on, late 15th, early 16th century, and finally in the 17th century by Vauban, the main military architect for Louis XIV. Bayonne always had a strategic location. It was a thriving port dealing in maritime trade. The French, the English, the Spanish fought over the city for a really long time. So what I'd like to do is walk with you today and take you in the city. We are standing in front of La Poterne, postern meaning a gate in the fortifications. There used to be several gates. This one was added in the 19th century, but it enables us to go through the walls, and on the other side we will be at the foot of one of two chateaus that were built to protect the city. Chateau who saw many famous visitors and French leaders. You are now walking under the city walls. The chateau is known as the Château Vieux, the old chateau. And it will be on the left-hand side when we come out of this. Today it's occupied by the military, so we can't visit it. But this is the chateau that was added to the walls as early as the 12th century. Bayonne has several sections and two rivers, so everything is organized around the rivers. The whole life of the city has depended on these two rivers, La Nive and l'Adour, that connect in the city and then go into the Atlantic Ocean. So it's interesting to look at a map of Bayonne because you can really see how it's organized around those two rivers. Right now we are in Le Grand Bayonne, and Le Grand Bayonne is really where the history of the city started with the Romans in 4 AD. At the time it was known as Lapordum, and this area is where the Romans, the main castrum as they say, the heart of the Roman city was. So I'm going to walk up here so you can see the walls now from above. Of course, looking at the chateau now, it looks pretty civilized, but it was once a fortress protecting the city like the walls. Bayonne, like other cities we've been to on the Strip, was English for 300 years, from the 12th through the 15th century. And by the end of the 100 Years' War, it became French again. One last peek at the chateau, the Château Vieux. The other chateau sits in the other section known as Le Petit Bayonne, across the river from us. But as you can see, the walls are still very much here. A couple of towers remain as well. And this is a very popular picnic spot. This is where we started from down there. This is a popular picnic spot for locals. And when you're standing up here, you really get a feel for how powerful the walls must have been. We would have been within the walls right now. My name is Véronique, Véro. I am a long-time travel blogger, a Paris-based tour guide, and a French language instructor. This is the summer of 2020, where everything is a little bit different. And because I love to teach and guide and share my love of France, I decided to do this while traveling around the country, the western section of the country this summer. And I share information daily under France with Véro on Facebook, on Instagram, on my YouTube channel where I share these videos. We are approaching the section of Le Grand Bayonne, the heart of the city, where a lot of the historical landmarks can be found. And today I'm taking you on a stroll. Make sure to watch the other video I filmed in Bayonne along the riverfront of La Nive, N-I-V-E, one of the two local rivers. You will enjoy it, I think. So the walls were on the right here, and this is the back of the buildings. We are going to dive right in and go inside the city. One thing you notice in Bayonne is from wherever you are in this part of town, you kind of see the cathedral peeking at you over the rooftops. You see those two steeples over there. And this keeps happening. Here's a very pretty street. La rue des Forts, F-A-U-R-E-S. And what I like in the street, if you look at the facades that are very typical of this area, that was the cathedral. You have the old and the new, one of many burger restaurants you find everywhere in France right now. But across from the burger bar, you also have the old, the new and the old facing each other. Here is a store telling you, with this very medieval sign, that here they bind books by hand. La reliure is book binding. We will see many streets similar to this one. Now, the center of town, the historical center of town, is mostly pedestrianized, which is lovely. What I plan to do is to give you a feel for this city in terms of its architecture, especially in this part of town, right around the cathedral. And of course, people can't get enough of the beautiful streets. The colorful facades. Most of the facades we see now in the town date back to the 18th century. And one way to tell is that usually these will be made of stone with the beautiful, intricate railings outside the window. Whoops. It's actually windy. And here we are at the foot of St. Mary's Cathedral, one of the few Gothic cathedrals in this part of France. I will try and give you a better view from the streets because we're too close now. Next to it is an amazingly beautiful cloister where a special exhibit is running right now. But the cathedral, they started working on it in the 13th century, and it went on for several centuries. And major work was done in the 19th when those two steeples were added. Again, I think we will see them better from another street. Okay, there's a car. Here we go. I think I'll go this way. There are so many streets, it's hard to choose. I've noticed before when I film videos that all I have to say is that an area is pedestrianized and then cars start to pop up everywhere. This is one of the access points into the cloister. Beautiful cloister built from the 13th through the 15th century that's played a very important part in the story of this town, or this city. I'm pretty sure we will be car free here. You see what they do? They block off a street and then only les riverains, R-I-V-E-R-A-I-N-S, les riverains meaning people living or working here, can access the street. They have a key card and they can just go in. Bayonne has beautiful stores and great shopping streets. There's also an accent for sure. We are in southern France, and Bayonne is the capital of the French Basque country. Like in many French cities this summer, face masks are mandatory in the historical center of town, and people are pretty compliant. You do incur some hefty fines if you don't comply. That, helps. Here is a sign asking people to mask up in the street from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Rue d'Espagne is a main street in town. It takes you to the gate of Spain, which was the main access to Spain, which stands very close by, in fact. And lots of shops line the street, La Rue d'Espagne. I'm showing the street signs at my club members' request because they enjoy following the walks. And I'm going to go down another really great street called Rue Poissonnerie. poissonnerie. In many cities, especially those who had a busy life in the Middle Ages, street names will be based on former trades. So in this street, it is likely that there were a lot of fishmongers. What, says the French dog. It's almost 2 p.m. A lot of people are still having lunch. Kind of live on Spanish time here. Late lunches, late dinners. Now, if I keep going all the way down, I will reach one of the two rivers that go through town, La Nive, N-I-V-E, which is lined on both sides by very quaint buildings. So again, make sure to catch that other video on YouTube. I will be sharing it this week. It will also introduce you to the local covered market. Look at this one. Rue des Augustins. You have to walk through a little porch to get in there. So I'd love to go in this one, but there's a car coming. We shall wait. There's barely enough space for everyone. Pretty boutiques along here. I like colors. Second half of August and all the fall gear. Bonjour. Is already out. Bayonne would make a really good home base to explore the French Basque country. There are lovely villages, some better known than others, that you would need a car to see. Biarritz, wonderful city on the coast, where I took you a few days ago, is only a 10-minute train ride away. If you want to experience life in the former so-called imperial city, which became really trendy in the 19th century, you can go to Biarritz. It's a short trip from here. And look at the architecture here. Now, one thing you notice in Bayonne is a lot of the houses are half-timbered homes, a little bit like what you see in other French cities. Remember when we went to Vannes in Brittany earlier this summer? Now, the colors are usually green, a dark blue, and also this Basque red, referred to as oxblood. But on top of the half-timbered homes, you also have stone facades, like I mentioned earlier. So you have both in this architecture. So the riverbanks are right down there. And a lot of these streets lead back to the cathedral, to St. Mary Cathedral. You see it from everywhere. What I mentioned in my other video is the reason a lot of the houses are so tall and narrow, especially in little side streets like these leaving from the river, is because for a really long time they had canals here. The tide would come in twice a day, and if they hadn't built their houses on stilts, the houses would have been flooded. So a lot of the houses that you see in those side streets, like the one I'm standing in, are actually built on stilts, and they're very tall and narrow. In Bayonne, they also have something very interesting that you can visit on some tours if you book ahead of time. It's the basements. The basements of a lot of these medieval houses are made of stone when the houses are not. And the reason those basements are there is because Bayonne, being a strategic city, was involved in quite a few wars over time. And so the basements were a place where they could keep food, supplies, in case the town was besieged, in case even the houses burned down, then they would still have supplies in the basements. So this is an architectural detail or here in Bayonne. Look at this building. Probably 18th century as well. This is an intersection of 5 streets. I really like this section of town, actually. It's called, there's a sign here that tells you, La Place des 5 Cantons. So it's a square, and you have 5 streets. The one we came on, and then this pretty one here that takes you back to the cathedral. That's 2. 1 on the left here, 3, 4, and 5. So you could go down this one and head back to the river. You could take this one and also head back to the river. Or you could stay in this part of town and go to the cathedral, which I probably will do to show you a little bit more of it from the outside. Now, you may know that Bayonne has excellent food. Local specialties include the famous charcuterie, and in particular le jambon de Bayonne, a true delicacy. And this is a business, a family business that's been here, they tell us, since 1946. And you can see the jambon de Bayonne in the window. Here's a big piece here. I hope you can see it in spite of the reflection. Maybe if I do this. A nice peek at those facades here. You see the mix of stone with the railings and the half-timbered homes. You have both on this street. Chocolate is also a delicacy. In fact, there is a street in Bayonne where you find most chocolate makers. The traditional ones, a lot of them opened in the 19th century, or some newer ones as well. This is the chocolate capital of France. It has been for centuries. And they have a festival celebrating chocolate here every year. They have several festivals. One celebrates le jambon de Bayonne, the famous ham. Another one, the chocolate. And then in August, the very popular Fête de Bayonne for 5 days. Unfortunately, as you can guess, everything was canceled this year because of you know who. I really like this side of this street, it's pretty. You can see the popular colors, the green, the blue, like I mentioned, and the oxblood red. People are trying to find some shade. It's getting very hot now. Artiga is one of the famous brand names for that beautiful fabric from the Basque country. a striped fabric. It looks great at home, any way you choose to use it, as table linens, as pillows, really colorful. And Artiga is one of the maisons, the oldest maisons that specialize in this fabric. Let's look back at this intersection we just came from. Beautiful weather. Now you notice some of the shops are closed. It's because it's about 2 p.m. now, and this is La Provence. This is not Paris. And en Provence, in La Provence, everywhere outside Paris basically, shops will close at lunchtime. So you have to plan ahead if you want to do some shopping. And they don't feel sorry about it. They just lock up for a couple of hours. La Maison Pradier was open this morning. It's now closed. It's la siesta, nap time. We are on Rue de l'Argenterie. So you can guess there were some silversmiths here, possibly. I hope you can see it with the sun, I'm not sure. Argenterie. Nice peek at the cathedral from here. And I do love this little square. Place Pasteur. So the square is named after scientist Pasteur, Louis Pasteur. You have cafes and restaurants, and this is a particularly shady place. I should say shaded. Anyway, you get my drift. Trees and shade. This is nice too. There's a little fountain over there. And another great street going down in front of us called La Rue du Pilori, Pilori. And here is the entrance, this beautiful cathedral, a Gothic cathedral. They started working on in the 13th century. I did visit it. Here is La Place Pasteur. Calaca Cafe is a nice little cafe, and you can have light lunches here too. And the trees I was talking about, providing shade. And in southern France, those little squares with trees are everywhere. You have to. It's just too hot. St. Mary Cathedral. And here's a nice view here of one of the two steeples that were added in the 19th century. The Cathedral of Reims in the Champagne inspired this design. And like I mentioned earlier, the gentleman who created this design for the steeples had worked with Eugène Viollet-le-Duc, the famous architect who worked on so many monuments in France, religious sites or not, including, of course, Notre Dame in Paris. So there you go. Nice little walk in Bayonne. I hope this made you feel like visiting this part of France. Biarritz, Bayonne, Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. I've managed to see a few of the local towns. And I've taken you along with me, as I always do, on Facebook, on France with Véro, on Instagram, on YouTube with videos. Now there's a way to access a lot more than this, a lot more content than this, more stories, more videos, more live events. It's by joining the France with Véro Club on Patreon. Basically for a small contribution each month, starting at $5 a month. You can join the club, and I share exclusive content with you There are different levels, different types of rewards. I can tell you that my club members will get a private tour of the cloister of the cathedral I mentioned earlier. And this is part of the rewards they get as a thank you for supporting my business and my creative endeavors. Standing right at the foot of Saint Mary Cathedral in Bayonne. I was trying to avoid this entrance because the sun is facing me, but I could try and show it to you anyway. We'll try that and then I'll wrap up. How about that? This is very beautiful here. Okay, here we go. Thank you so much for joining me on this walk. Here's a good spot to wrap up in front of this beautiful building. Come and check out the Basque country and Bayonne when you can. À bientôt!